Recording in progress.
I don't know whether it's just Philadelphia, which is the crappiest airport.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been in there.
Okay, it's 6:37, and we are going to call the Wednesday, April 27th meeting to order. Two notes on the agenda. Thanks everybody for coming. It's nice to have a full house. I do think that I realize you guys want to be on the agenda first, but I think that we're going to stick with our established agenda. We also have people contacting us from New York and from other places that have timed their contributions to our standard agenda, which had been fixed. So we're going to do you after we do our business from last time, which puts you really right after the finance thing, which is going to be very short. But we want to get the Amanda Brower thing in, because that's where our consultant is online with us for that part of the presentation. And this other part will probably take us, planning on an hour. So, first order of business is to approve the minutes. Can we get a motion? And have anybody read the minutes or any additions, corrections?
I move to approve.
You what?
A motion.
Okay. All in favor? Second. Okay.
Cliff, at this point, I would like to suggest that you revise what you've just said and that we go to Cape Spirit first of all, because there are so many people here who don't need necessarily to listen to what we have to discuss about all the other things.
Okay. I agree with that. Okay. I do think that we're going to, I hear you, but we're going to go ahead with the agenda as stated.
Can I ask what the other members of the committee think?
We've got people set up from New York, so if they're timed to come in, I think we have to do that first.
I think we want to take care of our primary business, and it's actually our prerogative to set it the way you want to. Okay? So going on from approving the minutes, the first thing we have is exhibition updates. Do you have my disc over there? What's in the? Okay. The first disc. I think there's some the first two go to the image 1995 and 1996, and we had a captain in charge of this installation. So I'd like to get a report from our captain about it.
So we installed the Lewis Squirts by Vivian this weekend, this week, and I would say it went relatively well.
Hi,
Relatively.
please speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I would say it went relatively well. We learned something new on all of these, and I will thank the city for their generous help of Jordan, who was huge. It's still a work. I mean, figuring out how to do these installations well, I still think we're working out, because it was quite an endeavor, and I don't think Vivian had everything worked out 100%, and then it took a lot to get it where it needed to be, which is they're up. But I'm super happy about them, and they look great. If you want to go check them out when you're going to the farmer's market pretty soon, you can see them in the field just beyond.
I think that the installation, we had people there from 9 o'clock till about 2, maybe till 1.
It was pretty good. And
we had a couple of volunteers, Achilles, I forget, Dementinas, Ed Tesson was an incredible, huge help from the Parks Department, and we've had a pretty good response on Instagram, and up in the world of Facebook, it's sort of creeping out there. I think that Vivian was, even though her assistant had put everything together, as he assured her, not everything always goes together as you think, and that's why it took us so much longer to install it than we thought. But we're really happy to get that one done, and we have a new one going up tomorrow. Tomorrow's We have a different captain for tomorrow's installation.
Okay, so tomorrow, we've got Rose DiCiano putting up Absent Monuments and Armillary Empowerment in George H.B. Smith Park, over in the corner by DuPont and Johnson. So she's actually on her way here now. She's coming in a 15-foot truck with her husband and her 3-year-old, and she's staying at my house. So I may be getting texts from her. So we're going to start at the park tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. We walked that corner of the park last week with Ed Tesson of the Parks Commission, just to cite where the possibilities would be. Keeping the setup for Juneteenth in mind, that's June 25th, I believe, and we will have a stage there and a number of food trucks. So the sculptures will be in that area, which I think will be fabulous, but out of the way of all the hustle and bustle of the trucks and the stage and the farmer's market. And if you haven't heard what these sculptures, the theme of them, there's 2 different kinds. There are these big spheres that move within each other. And then there's 2 of those, and then there are 2 obelisks. And all of them are printed with images that we have supplied, the city of Lewis. And it's actually the African American Heritage Commission members who have supplied these photographs. And I want to thank most especially Trina Brown Hicks, because she has just been a godsend. And the members of the committee, Reverend George Edwards, Reverend Deborah McCafferty, Bishop Arthur Jones, Dee Lott, Rachel Greer Reynolds, Bill Colick, and from the Lewis Historical Society, Denise Clemens. So they were invaluable in supplying these images which will be used on the sculptures, which we will see tomorrow. We haven't seen the finished product. And Rose, the artist, has taken these images and curated them, just for the images that she wanted to use. But they are really a memorial and a commemoration of the Black community in Lewis, which is why it's going to be terrific that they're sited right where the Juneteenth Festival is. And I think they're going to be really beautiful. They're very elegant. So thanks to Rose DiCiano, who's our artist, who made the final selection of images and fabricated these sculptures. Stop on by anytime tomorrow. We'll be in that part of the park putting them up. And, yeah, I think that's about it for now.
Cool.
We've got the plaque information.
I've got the-
which Heidi's got those.
Yeah.
Plaque reveals.
Actually, can we go to, I'm sorry, I don't know your name over there. I feel very rude.
Julian. Hi, Julian.
Julian, would you mind putting up the thing that says plaques for us? So these are the plaques that we do. Actually, Heidi gets done for the committee, and we get information from the artists. This has been the size that we have adopted as appropriate for the park system, so we don't interfere too much. And we feel like they get just a little bit of information, but we're using the that little circle things that go right to the websites. So we feel it really works pretty well. We could be more sophisticated and have a different one for every page we go to, but we just don't. We're just not that good. And
Heidi's not that sophisticated.
so anyway, that's basically how we're conveying our information. And these are quotes from the artist, and we try to. There's all 4 of them are up there, and so that's how we do that. I think that I did want to mention. I forgot to mention on the first one with Vivian that she. They stayed at Canal Square. They stayed at Ted's place, Ted's Hotel, and it was really nice of him to put us up. And she also brought her husband, who was, we'll talk about in a minute, who's the director of Storm King. If any of you guys have ever been to Storm King, he's executive director. We're going to talk about that in a second. So they came as, we got 2 for 1 on that deal. All right, the next captain for Letha Wilson has been on vacation, so taking over for him. That piece is going to go in Canal Front Park. It's going to go on a concrete pad, which has been poured. Is that right, Peter? Peter? Has it been poured, your pad? Has it been? Poured.
Yes, it's there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cliff, do you have a picture of that you want up?
I like the spot it's in.
Okay.
Great. So this is temporary concrete pad. It's 4 inches thick. It's 82 inches by 42 inches, or I think, and it will. It's going to house a piece of two pieces of interconnecting steel, which have a photo montage, one from lava and one from leaves, and it's going to be a very interesting thing to walk around. And there's kind of this slow reveal as you circle it, and I think you'll really like it. Well, I know everyone won't really like it, but it's definitely more uplifting than Unbounded 2 was last year. We're trying to change the vibe of some of the work. Like, so I think the Vivian stuff, which is light and kind of, fun and expressive, is one side of the art that we're trying to show to the public, and this one is going to be a little more contemplative. So that's Letha. The next thing we have to talk about is the update on the mosaics in the
park.
in the sculpture gardens or park. Yeah,
So
Heidi did that.
Susan and I met today, and we picked the placement, well, a few other people too. We picked the placement for the 4 mosaics that we approved, I don't know, a few months ago, and they look amazing. And here's my map, the canal front square map. This is where they're being placed. And we decided that we needed frames made, so we weren't sure about how to actually put them in. So we came up with a plan that would be strong enough for the wind, weighted enough for them. They're in the PVC pipe, so there's no concrete going in anything. And they're a little bit lower than, they'll be about 12 inches off the ground in the front, so and be slanted, so they'll be in the garden, and kind of everything can grow up around it. We had a great discussion, and I think they'll be well received. And you can kind of see them from every walkway, so you'll be able to walk around them and kind of come upon the next one and come upon the next one. So, yeah,
So-
it was good.
Are they all in Canal Front Park?
They did end up all in Canal Front Park because they seemed to want to be together.
All right.
We talked to them, and that's what they asked for.
Well, good for, that's really, I'm glad when things work out.
Yeah.
All right,
Peace
that's
has to be there.
That's great. That's going to be a nice addition to the art scene. Next thing is the new map. If you goes to the
Docents.
Oh, I missed John Collins. We have a report on John Collins's visit from Barry.
That's all right, brain freeze. As many of you know, I'm the commissioner of Great Marsh Park, and I am engaged in a master planning process for the 66 acres. It's over off of New Road and Park Road. Currently, we have 2 facilities in the park, and we don't have a master plan. We've got the garden plots and the dog park, and we are required to do a master plan in order to maintain our lease with the state for that property. So we kind of have a blank slate other than the 2 facilities that we have, so there's lots of opportunities to develop this park and lots of ideas. So we're really excited about that. Most of the surveys that we did indicated that people want to maintain the park or the land in its natural state and do things like trails and and things like that. So one of the things that we thought, or we mentioned to the park planner, wouldn't this be a great place to do a sculpture park? And so we're talking about a sculpture park, a sculpture trail, a sculpture garden, and it just so happened that Vivian Collins' husband is the director of Storm King. If you've ever heard of Storm King, you really should Google it. It's an amazing sculpture park north of New York City, up around West Point. Anyway, so he graciously walked the park with us and gave us lots of good ideas about doing a sculpture park, how to do it, you know, whether to put sculptures all together or whatever. So that was really a real bonus having Vivian come here with her husband, because we didn't even know that her husband, she was going to bring her husband, number one, and that he was the director of that park. So hopefully that is an alliance that we develop with him, and as we continue to develop Great Marsh Park and the master plan, hopefully we can, you know, check in with him to help us do that. So,
Do you have a due date on that master plan?
it's going to be October.
October.
He
yeah.
also did weigh in on the placement of the Cape Spirit, which I can talk about later.
Does the master plan, are we gonna have public hearings on that?
Yes, the
Okay.
first, it's not set, but we're looking towards the end of May, early June for the first, and then based on the development from the architectural landscape company, we would do the second one probably in the fall. But we're hoping to have something to present to council by the end of the year.
Okay,
Great.
great.
End of 2023.
No, a
this
conceptual
year.
plan, the end of this
This
year.
year.
Okay.
Yeah, just a conceptual, and then you have to,
Conceptual, not
not the
engineering
build,
plan.
yeah, not the engineering and the building. And of course, it has to go before the state for approval, so that would probably push it back. It might be early next year.
Right.
But our goal for getting the conceptual plan is October, early November.
We've already done all kinds of inventories on the flora and fauna there, and they've, had the wetlands people out there and flown over it with those drones and everything. So we're on our way, which is exciting for everybody. I mean, in my mind, I kind of call it Lewis's Central Park, because, it's 66 acres. That's a lot of land that we have that we can use and enjoy.
Okay. You wanna ask a question?
Just Barry, where is it located? Can you be more specific?
You know where Park Road is?
I know where New Road is.
You know where
The wind turbine
Do you know where
is?
the windmill is?
Dog park?
Okay, from the windmill towards New Road. It's, the dog park is kind of almost right in the middle, and the garden plots
So,
are,
University of Delaware land.
Yeah,
yes, exactly,
Totally.
exactly.
go in
And
that
there's
big road, the woods on both
Really
sides.
like 4 sections, because it's really kind of bisected by,
The road.
road to the dog park and Canary Creek, and also Park Road. So it goes all the way to, I call it the bridge on Park Road. It's a big, white, so it stops right there.
So that road goes all the way to,
Pilot Town.
It's pretty exciting. Thanks.
Any other questions?
No? Do you want us to get a,
Oh, we have a question.
Peter?
I've never been to a meeting before. It would be very helpful if you had any, if you're talking about the pieces that are now being put in, or and the things to be done, if you had some visual things you could show to bring me up to date. I don't feel very connected
Okay.
to stuff. So
We had them at previous meetings, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have,
Yes.
we had a few issues getting our agenda together, but we will, we definitely try to do that. And The only one we have is the one that's finished. And the other one you can see tomorrow, and
They're also, all of the hearings have been recorded, so in the previous meetings where we have shown them, you would be able to view them on the city's YouTube page.
But
I think they're
to your
going
point,
to
we
be,
can
I
get it
mean,
better.
yeah. You're right, we should have had the
Yes,
pictures
you're
up,
right.
Peter.
Be up to date, pretty good.
We try, but,
I'm thinking generally, it might be better to have something to sit and look at.
Yes, I agree.
my fault.
We'll get on that.
I do have something going with right now. Julian, can you put up the city art loop map? This is right now, it's in progress. Oh, first of all, can we let Karen in from New York? She's like pounding.
Okay.
I had myself turned off from disturbing, and she is not.
Do you see
And-
her, Julian? Okay.
And we also have our other member there online that we can see.
Oh, right.
Hi, Carol. Get better soon. Carol has a medical excuse for missing the meeting.
She's not missing it, though.
She's here.
She's here. Just not in person.
Okay. All right, so,
Perfectly acceptable.
so anyway, the city, the map, as we do the loop for this year, it's still a work in process, and it is, but mostly done. I have to update some of the photos on there. Sue, do you want your mosaics in the park on that?
City art loop.
On that map? Okay, because I'll add those too. I didn't know exactly where they were going, which is why they're not in there. But if you look at it, this is a bicycle trail, and it makes a pretty sweet little loop in the city. And this goes up on our website, and I think the Chamber of Commerce shares it. And we try to identify with the same places from last year, with your with the Art and Bloom spots, and trying to have them come and go from where they can park their cars at the library. So that's cross-referenced, and when you click on it in real time, you will get a picture of each of the places that you can visit, and that is the limit of my competence.
Good job.
I think we've got Karen.
All right, I have to get exactly where yours. Well, I'll get it from where the mosaics are in the canal front. All right, the next thing we're going to do is the Amanda Brower update. Karen, are you here with us?
I am.
All right. So, can you put up the picture called Dockmaster 3? Okay, this is your net house in Canal Front Park. This is something that we're working on for 2023. We've talked about it 2 or 3 times. The artist's name is Amanda Browder. I think it's spelled wrong in the minutes. Anyway, so can you tell us a little bit? I mean, we've received a new information from her, and we can talk about her process. But Karen, can you just update the people here about her process and what we're looking at?
So I heard Cliff telling everybody that, you've gone from like having some like serious artwork, some like, the rocks compared to the more whimsical sculpture by Vivian Collins and even last year's Kate Dodd. But the one type of public art you haven't done yet or had yet is where the community participates. And that's kind of very exciting, I think, and that's what Amanda Browder does, is she asks for donations of material. I can't see that you put up the picture, but I imagine you did. Mm-hmm. She asks for donations of material, and then she has like sort of the equivalent of a sewing bee. She has participatory days. And so the people who donated fabric, and maybe people who haven't donated fabric but want to be part of sewing with her, and they sit there and they discuss, well, this flowered fabric was part of my grandmother's nightgown, and it becomes your old-fashioned quilting bee where you're sitting together and discussing what is important about the piece of fabric that you donated, or pieces, and then you help stitch together, the community does, whoever she involves, and then, okay, I see it now. And then, you know, the beauty of it is that everybody, when they're looking at it, can sort of point to their piece and their contribution, and, you know, it's kind of a nice thing for bringing a community together and for discussion, and I mean, that's what public art is, you know, does best, even when it's rocks that you may not like, you know, it's a conversation, it's a meeting place, it's placemaking, it's, you know, making everybody think about Canal Front Park differently than they did before, and hopefully something like this will be exciting for a community to come together and create together.
Thank you, Karen. I do want to tell you that we did the city, Art and Bloom especially did a mosaic piece on the bridges, which brought the community together, and it was a big success, and people liked
I'd love
that.
to see a picture of it when you get a chance.
Okay.
Later.
It's on the city map. But I think that one thing that we did ask Art and Bloom to see if they would help us with this project, but we couldn't. There was a question about how much financial support we could give them, so we have gone to a group of quilters. So we have a tremendous number of maybe 300 or 400 quilters that might be available through a regional group. This process is a lot more expensive than we originally thought. We have some data sheets of everything we have to go through, and that's why we're talking about this at the meeting right now. We actually have to, if we do it on the net flouse, we have to hang lattice, cable and wire lattice around the house to hold this stuff on. We can't just like nail it. And so it's going to involve anchors and weights, and we have to get constructional drawings of the houses so they can get the measurements right. So if we decide we're going to go ahead and pursue this, it's probably going to be our only project next year. And I know it's going to be upwards of $10,000 or more to get it done. We don't know exactly because we haven't figured out exactly the size of it, and we don't know. But Denise worked on, can you tell us about the group you were working with?
I've been exposed to COVID, that's why I'm sitting apart from the group. We reached out to Ocean Waves Quilt Guild, and we have a point person there, Carol Fisher, and she has assured us, we've met with her, that she can put out a call for quilters to bring their machines and go to Conley's Church Parish Hall or other locations. And so the artist does provide a pattern, so they would be working under her direction and creating the covering for the net house. And we could certainly use other volunteer help, I'm sure, but she's very, very confident that if she puts out the call, sewers will appear.
Yeah, I think that we're looking like four different sewing dates. The artist comes into town. This is we have this process sheet which I haven't seen before, and she does a visit. She records the stories of everybody that puts on this art, so that when this thing is finished, she actually, has the stories recorded for each piece of identifiable piece of fabric. So you actually get this not only a momentarily thing, but after it's done, because we're not paying that much, she keeps it, and then this becomes part of a textural, major show somewhere else later on if she wants it. And it's a pretty interesting, it'd be a really inclusive, involved operation. But I think that she's done it so many times. And Nancy, you worked with her before, right? Or
I worked at the Albright Knox in Buffalo, New York, and we did a project with her as I was on my way out of the Albright Knox coming back down to work in Philly. We wrapped a church with her, and they loved working with her. They got the entire community involved, but I don't know the actual logistics because I was not on that project. But I know I saw the finished project. It was spectacular, and I think that was the one that she references it took them 7 days to do it, because they, reading this, it's clear that they needed the lattice and the cables and the, you know, the weights to do it. But it was really, it was great. One of the stories I got from one of the art handlers that was working on the project said that people were driving by just like yelling out the windows, "What are you doing? It's amazing." It was really fun, and I think it would just be fabulous for Lewis, and really great project.
Well, one of the buildings suggested in our discussion was the Fisher Martin House. And I said, well, you know, we have the Historical Society here in town, and they would murder us and they would get away with it. So we don't know exactly where it would go, but this is a typical installation, and I think we're going to pursue that. Does everybody feel like it's the way to go for next year?
I think there's a lot more discussion needs to take place, having read what you put out today in
Right.
the way of how things are done and what needs to be done and who needs to be involved and so on.
I totally agree.
There's a lot of manpower that's going to be need to be involved.
Absolutely.
I got you.
And, you know, and I know you're using that as an example of the net house, but, you know, presumably you have to apply to the city to use it.
We would. Go ahead, Peter.
I'm amazed just hearing about this. I'm glad I came to the meeting tonight.
It's 2 years away.
Is this meant to be permanent?
No. And all we're doing now is we're setting this up so that next week we have our first detailed phone call with her. The next time after that, she would come down and we would do a consult. So there's it's a long process. This is not just, we're going to buy it and do it. And it's not, there's a lot of real hard work that goes into putting it together. Right.
One of the things we're doing this year, the Friends of the Canal Park, we're going to insist that the city give us some approval rights over what happens in the park.
Right.
And we're really going to press for it. And this is the type of thing that alters the look of the park. So if it was permanent, for example, it really does create a major disruption. In what's a very quiet area
Right.
where people have picnics and stuff like that.
Karen, are you still there? How long do these usually last?
We were going to do a project with her that we didn't end up having the time for, but she felt confident in it lasting, 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Yeah.
Listen, I thought it was neat looking.
Good.
It's a piece of art.
Well, we wouldn't, yeah, we certainly wouldn't put it in anywhere without getting your permission and approval. So, I mean, it's your park.
We're not necessarily wedded to the net house either,
No,
are we?
no. I thought we could wrap City Hall,
Let's overfalls.
cover the front door. All right. Is there anybody else? Yeah, any other comments on this, on Amanda's project? Okay. Tim, we're gonna do your house? You're volunteering? All right. So we're going to go ahead and pursue that with the phone call next week, and I will build a section of our website so that we can start, people can look at it and see what's going on and see how it progresses. I think we're a long way from committing to it because there's a lot of work to do. All right. Budget and Finance Committee report. I have not received the sheets that we were asked for, and so I don't really have that. I do have to report that I received a note saying that our checks that were supposed to go out in March, that we were told went out in March, did not go out in March. So we didn't spend our money from last year, and we have to look more carefully at our money from this year or ask for our money back. So that'll happen in the future, but we haven't been able to look at it because I don't have the ledger. So that gets us through in well under an hour to the last item on the agenda, which is the presentation of a application to called Cape Spirit. And I think it's, does anybody need to take a break or anything before we get into this? All right. Well, I'm very happy that everybody is in the room, and one thing we have to remember is that we all are here because we like art. We have more in common than we do in opposition. And I think that it's really great. I'm really happy that so many people are interested in public art and have put this put this project forward, and the purpose of this part of the meeting is to do diligence from this subcommittee of Lewis and Bloom to be placed in this particular site. There are real issues commissioning this piece of work because it's permanent, which means you'll be looking at it the rest of your life. Well, most of the people in this room would. There has been a lot of many presentations, and most of us have seen it once or twice, not everyone. I think that we're trying to understand exactly what's going on here. We look at this project as more akin to building a house than planting a garden. People have accused us of putting up roadblocks. I think that what we're doing is we're examining the building blocks of how something like this can be put together and committed to and accepted in terms of our confidence in the future. So I think first we're going to hear from Ed. We have allotted 10 minutes for this presentation. After that, we will review the application according to the policies that have been adopted by the City of Lewis. We've all been studying the application for...
Absolutely. Thank you.
We've all been studying this application for 2 weeks, at least, and maybe much longer, actually. So I'm hoping that we're going to go over it page by page. So the stuff that has been lifted and put into your application, we're going to go over it again. So use your 10 minutes as you will.
Thank you to the committee for letting us make this presentation. Thank you for all those folks that are here to hear it. There are some members of the committee that have seen this presentation, but there are others who have not. So we wanted to bring it, although we have updated it from the original presentation that Mr. Chairman has seen. So it is slightly different. Okay. May I begin? Slide 1 is basically, no, back to slide 1, thank you. Is basically the members of Art and Bloom. Now, let me bring forward the fact that Lewis and Bloom has been a legal entity in this town for over 20 years, and Art and Bloom has been a committee of Lewis and Bloom for 6 years. Both Art and Bloom and Lewis and Bloom work under the auspices of the Greater Lewis Foundation, which I'm sure you all know. Next slide.
I'm sorry, can you just move the microphone down just a little bit so that you're, yeah.
Like that?
I just want to make sure it's all
You can hear me?
heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Briefly, I want to show you what Art and Bloom has done to date, and I'll be very quick. On the lower left is the Silent Sentinels that exist near the trailhead across from the Lewis Library. Above that is the Menhaden mural by Damon Pla. That's the 3-story mural on the side of the Beacon Motel. On the far right, of course, is the mosaic murals that are on the canal front bridge, of which we had over 50 volunteers in Lewis and Bloom to help us put that together. On the lower right is a sketch or drawing of Lewis Junction, which has already been approved by Mayor and Council, and that's going to go next to the library as soon as we possibly can. We're looking at probably fall. In the center is just a new venture for us. It's a Trump Lloyd painting by artist Jean Duran, and it just, it's a fun kind of project. You look at it and you think you're looking through a window inside a Kindle restaurant, and you're really not. It's an actual painting. And we hope to do more of those within the town. Next slide. So you've heard a lot about Cape Spirit and our application. I'm sure you've read it, about Rick Rothrock, the artist, and why we think it'll be an iconic piece of art for Lewis. Those of us on the Art and Bloom Committee are extremely excited about having a Delaware artist bring Cape Spirit to Lewis. Next slide. So obviously you've seen the pictures of it in your presentation or your application, but this is a little bit better picture, I think. You can see what Cape Spirit looks like. The artist has created a design combining the human form with a nautical knot that will hopefully convey a sense of joy and self-reflection about this place where we live and play. We believe the sculpture will transform you as it reaches up to the sky in celebration of Lewis's historic connection to the sea. We believe the sculpture will invigorate park attendance, particularly at that end of the park near the pergola. Ultimately, it will give the citizens of Lewis a memorable and iconic piece of art that captures our cultural environment and our spirit. The sculpture can best be described in the words of the artist. Cape Spirit is figurative in its proportions and gesture, rising upward in a posture of open joy and celebration. The sculpture is designed to be representative of the human expression. Its form evokes the waves, the wind, and the clouds that created this place, and combines the human form with a nautical knot that ties the city to the sea. Cape Spirit offers a gesture of joy to the many people who will share it and experience its effect. At 20 feet in height, it will become a landmark in the city and will draw citizens and visitors alike into and through its space. Next slide. This is something that we like to bring to your attention. Janet, could you hand out those things to each member of the committee? I have 9 copies, so there should be enough for yourself and Tim there if you'd like one.
Thank you. I've got one.
You've got one.
So we're not the only ones excited about bringing Cape Spirit to Lewis. I submit to you 5 letters of endorsement for Cape Spirit being placed in Canal Front Park. They are from the Lewis Chamber of Commerce, the Friends of the Canal Front Park, the Overfalls Foundation Board, Lewis and Bloom Board of Advisors, and even the Southern Delaware Bureau of Tourism. The support and enthusiasm we've received among these distinguished and important Lewis and Sussex County organizations is beyond our expectations. To our knowledge, no piece of art, public art, has ever received this much support prior to being placed in Lewis. Let me say that again. To our knowledge, no piece of public art has ever received this much support prior to being placed in Lewis. If you look at the slide there, you'll see that the Overfalls are over 300 members. The Lewis and Bloom is over 380 members. The Lewis Chamber of Commerce represents 400 businesses, 200 of which are near Canal Front Park. The Southern Delaware Tourism is involved in all of Sussex County and the Friends of Canal Front Park. Next slide. I'm not going to read you all the letters. Obviously, there are lots to read. You want to take your time and read those as you go. But basically, they all endorse us. But I would like to read a few comments. Scott Thomas, Executive Director of the Southern Delaware Tourism. You can read it on the screen. Cape Spirit sculpture exudes the personality of Lewis and will reinforce the city's sense of place to visitors and residents. The sculpture will most certainly draw pedestrians and serve as an ideal backdrop for many photos and Instagram moments. Subsequently, this user-generated content will help promote Lewis as a premier travel destination. Next slide.
Julian?
Betsy Reamer, the Executive Director of Lewis Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure you all know, which represents over 400 local businesses, half of which near Canal Front Park. Public art is also a destination for many of our visitors and our residents. By locating it close to our shops, restaurants, museums, and many of our businesses, this will benefit on both sides of the canal. All of them are likely to benefit financially from the placement of Cape Spirit in Canal Front Park. Next slide. Michael Safina, president of the Overfalls Foundation. We believe the sculpture will be a positive enhancement of Canal Front Park, drawing locals and visitors alike to the park. Clearly, more activity in the park will then lead to more activity for the Lightship Overfalls and the Lewis downtown area, all of which we would welcome. Placing the artwork at Canal Front Park, we found out was exactly 290 steps from King's Ice Cream. We think that would be a great idea. We cannot underestimate what all these letters mean to us. We are very humbled by the fact that these groups represent almost 800 members and many, many businesses. Next slide. I know you've seen some things about Rick Rothrock. Hopefully you've gone to his website and then read about Rick. However, quickly I'll just say that Rick is a Delaware sculptor who has considerable reputation for designing and placing his sculptures in the public domain. He's used to working with city and state organizations. Rick currently has several works in Newcastle County and Kent County, but none in Sussex County. We'd like to change that. Rick is in the center there, and an advisor to us, Sebastian Tomorrow, is on the right side. Next slide. If you don't mind. Now, these slides I'll run through very quickly. These are all things that Rick has done. This is in Dover at the Constitution Park. And it's interesting to note that if Rick can get the legislature of the state of Delaware, both Republicans and Democrats, to agree on something, he got them to agree on this. Next slide. This is in Arden, Delaware. Next slide. This is also the same in Arden, Delaware. Next slide. This is in Wilmington, Delaware. We like this slide a lot because we show the interaction between little kids playing next to the sculpture.
Ed, if I can interrupt for a second, you've got 2 minutes left.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but this is my presentation, and I'm allowed to bring as long as I want to bring this presentation. It's going to be about 5 minutes longer. Okay? Thank you. Next slide. Again, children playing near it. Next slide is, and this is at the Biggs Museum in Dover. Next slide. And this is a slide of one of his pieces in Vermont. We would like to bring Cape Spirit and have it be brought to the first town in the first state. Next slide. So this is where I would like to place Cape Spirit by the pergola. Why? Number one, Rodney Robinson, who's the chair of this park and is part of the Lewis Parks and Rec Commission, has indicated to us that this is the best location for the sculpture, and we took his advice. And number two, Sebastian Demoro, who is acting as an advisor to us, suggested this is the best place in the park. Next slide. Sebastian's on the right. He's an internationally acclaimed artist and sculptor who happens to live in Lewis. And he'd be here tonight to talk to you, except he's in Venice at an art exposition that he is judging. However, this is what Sebastian said. The location of Cape Spirit fits contextually within the Canal Front Park. The boats moored in the canal directly relate to the artwork through its meaning of the knot and its materiality of the aluminum. The specific sighting of the artwork at the end of the arbor heightens the drama of the arbor and grounds the artwork Cape Spirit within that site. Its height will allow the work to be seen from most vistas within the park, but its slender steel structure will not block the viewer's eye from seeing through the work to the landscape beyond. Cape Spirit is not clearly visible from all vistas in the park, creating a sense of intrigue. We like that idea. It heightens the experience for visitors to the park to discover the artwork. And I was in the park just a week or so ago, kind of close to where the Overfalls is, and I looked back at the pergola, and I imagined what a 20-foot sculpture would look like there, and it just would heighten my experience of like, what's that all about? Let me go check that out. The suggested sighting of the artwork in the park creates a strong dialogue with its surroundings. Hence, it does not appear to be plunked down in any space without a sense of connection or meaning to its location. Next slide. This is, you can hit the play button on that. This basically shows Cape Spirit and revolving. It's a kind of idea where you're seeing it from different angles, and we like this idea. Now, I've just two people who would like to say some things about Cape Spirit. I'd like to invite Scott Thomas up here to just say a minute or so what he feels about it.
Sure. Thanks, Ed, and thank you, everybody. I'll be short because I know we're on a limited agenda.
Could you just, I'm sorry, state your name and your address for the record?
Scott Thomas, Executive Director for Southern Delaware Tourism. You saw some of the quotes, including mine, so I'm not going to repeat that. I just kind of want to reiterate that, you know, this has great potential. I mean, it could be another Lewis landmark. For downtown business, it's good. It helps people linger. And I think what most I like about this project, and you know what our board would support, is that it helps capture the storytelling that people do when they live here, but also when they visit here. You saw my quote about Instagram moments. That's what we love in tourism. I mean, this is something that can be just directly associated with Lewis, and it could be a landmark, just like the lightship overfalls being part of the canal line. I think it would blend in quite nice. And again, I don't want to be subjective. That's not what I'm here to be doing. I'm just here to kind of support this and, you know, just to thank you all for considering this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And just one other person, I'd like to invite Cindy DeMedio. Just say some things. Cindy is a longtime resident of Lewis and lives on Savannah Road.
As membership chair to the 380 members of Lewis and Bloom, I took it upon myself to ask them what they thought of Cape Spirit. Of those that I asked, I got a variety of different reactions. Most were very positive. As a piece of public art, it was fascinating to me what people saw in Cape Spirit. One member said that it looked like someone reaching up for a hug. Another lady said it looked like the beautiful body of a pregnant lady. And finally, one of our members' 10-year-old granddaughter said, "It looks like a butterfly to me." This, to me, is what makes Cape Spirit so exciting and the perfect piece to be placed in Canal Front Park. When I look at it, I see strength, joy, and hope. And right now, I feel we need all those things in our world today. As a native Delawarean and a resident of Lewis for the past 10 years, I'm proud of my city and what we've done in the first town in the first state. All of Art and Bloom's permanent projects so far have been diverse, unique, and have added an extra sparkle to our town. They have drawn residents from all over to see our public art. The addition of Cape Spirit to Canal Front Park would add another unique public art piece that will bring residents and visitors alike to Lewis. Let's show our Cape Spirit and add this piece to Canal Front Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Only have one more slide. Next slide, please. So, what we're asking that the Lewis Public Art Committee approve Cape Spirit being placed in Canal Front Park. We know you have lots of questions to hit me with after this, and I'm happy to answer them. And we'll also ask, and I'll have reasonings for explaining this later, that any engineering, environmental, or contractual issues be worked out by Art and Bloom, Rick Rothrock, and the City of Lewis before the installation. We've done this before, we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, and that was a really nice speech. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question about the artist?
Absolutely.
We're gonna, yeah, we can. We're gonna go the whole thing, but.
Has this artist worked with this material before? I didn't see any sculptures, anything like this.
I'm not aware of it specifically, but the artist has been around for 40 years, and he's located his art, like I said, in both counties and in Vermont. And he has an engineering people behind him, he has fabricators behind him. In fact, what we learned when we first went to his fabricators is that they were extremely excited about this project.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I want to move on to the application. That's what we're here for. Ed, we're not going to be, you can have a seat because we're going to be talking amongst ourselves and we won't be taking questions during this period while we discuss the application. We're going to go over it page by page, answer by answer, to see what makes sense and what we're still mystified about. I think that, right now, fine, but we're not going to, you can sit down and we can ask you. I can see better if you sit down, but I'd rather you sit down. Okay, so the thing about this exercise is that a piece of sculpture, when it's a concept like this, is nothing more than a concept. And a concept and idea is perfection. It doesn't exist in reality. It can be whatever you want to be. You can imagine everything that it could be. We have an application in front of us. It's a concrete question and answer situation. This is a working meeting of our committee. It's the only way we can actually meet and exchange ideas amongst ourselves is together and because of FOIA. So we need to go over that application, and that's what we're going to do. It was submitted by this Lewis and Bloom / Art and Bloom Steering Committee. All right, has everybody got their copy?
No, I don't.
Well, you have to, you have 2 copies? Man, that's a great committee.
Thank you very much.
I mean, this is a very specific application for a very specific place in the park for a very specific sculptural idea. I think that where we will go from here is that we really have to see how we bridge this gap between a conceived idea of what Cape Spirit could be and the actuality of how it actually gets here, and we're going to review all the details necessary for it to come to fruition. So, I mean, as we go over the pages, committee members can ask questions if you want, but I think that right at this point, we're just going to go through page by page and see what we, so we have questions about. So, number one, it says, the proposed installation site is near the pergola. Would you pull up on our sheet a slide called, where's that picture slide? Julian? I got a slide that has the map on it. It's called proposed location. Okay.
No, it's a thumb drive.
Thumb drive. So I want to clarify on the first page that this, it says proposed location. Okay. All right, so we were trying to get this, specifically, this is sort of in that, you see the little P, I don't know whether you can see it very well, in front of the pergola. Is that the location that you're talking about for the?
We did not submit this particular photograph, so I don't know where I'm looking at.
All right, well, has there anybody that's been down to the park? Tony, you've been there. Is that where you were standing when you took that thing?
I didn't take that photograph, so I don't
No,
know.
it's from Google. I'm just trying to find out where you're placing the thing. Where is it on where the P is? I'm trying to. All right, we asked for
You guys could figure it out if you know where you're.
we asked for a specific location in the application, and we don't have one.
And the boardwalk.
I don't know what I'm seeing. I think I'm seeing the.
That's the pergola, and that's part of Canal Front Inn, or Canal.
That's not the pergola.
Julian, if you could zoom in on that, there's a little pin drop there.
Right, it says
Right
P,
there.
right there.
Yeah, that's,
This is the pergola,
Right?
Okay.
and we were looking in this vicinity. Pictures were actually taken from here. That's where Ronnie Robinson suggested we take it.
Well, so this is a specific application for a specific place, and we asked you for a specific place, and this is, all right, never mind. So, okay, good. All right, that was what I was trying to figure out.
That's a look.
So, number 3, the locations on number 3, can you pull up? We don't, you know what you could do, Julian, is if you look at applications for Spirit on my thumb drive, we can put it up here so you can all look at it. Has anybody in the committee been down to see the site?
yeah.
Yes,
Has everybody been?
where I think it was going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were, it's a PDF. It says it's after inspiration. It should show up on your line after inspiration. I'm not sure you're in my thumb drive. There. Oh, you can't show a PDF?
There's,
All right. All right, well, we're going to move on. There's a question. There are three pictures in the application, and they show the piece straddling the walkway next to the boardwalk. All right, so we're going to assume that's the location because that's what's on the application. So we'll have to go by that picture. So the first question is, why is this the best place for your installation? And the answer is, I'm reading this page.
Is this a page number? We submitted a 23-page application. So
Page 4.
It's your page 4. So I'm reading the page and I see some general information. This first, it says it contextually fits with the Canal Front Park, and paragraph 3 says the pergola heightens the drama. And I'm looking for why it's best as opposed to every place else. Does anybody see an answer to the question that we're asking for?
No,
Okay.
it's talking about boats moored and.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So
That has to do with.
I'm not sure what the question is.
the question is, why is this the best place for installation? And we're just looking at your application. We're not taking input at this point because we're going to vote on the
I
application.
think what I'm not seeing that the question's answered.
Yeah, that was my question. So the next question that we asked was, why do you hope your sculpture? What do you hope your sculpture will accomplish by being there? What do you get out of this answer?
That it enhances public spaces.
It enhances public spaces. I saw that
Brings people to,
Tourism.
it helps business development and increases property values. So
It also mentions that.
Where's about the increases property values?
Page
I don't
5.
think we said that in that first.
Yeah, it does, page 5.
do you have a
first
copy of your
par-
application?
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay, page 5, the first paragraph.
Page 5 is your first paragraph. All right, so the next question I have for the committee is, I'm trying to see, do you think that we need to invigorate park attendance? Is that a valid reason to put a piece of sculpture there? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys? I mean, do you think that will increase park attendance?
I think it'll increase attendance at that end of the park.
Okay. All right.
and it will have an economic impact to the downtown businesses as a result of being
Well,
there.
I would imagine the economic impact would only occur if the people were not going to the park without a
No,
reason to
they'll go to
go.
the park and then they'll go to the businesses.
So
that's
but they're already in
that's a separate
town.
benefit.
Right.
To invigorate attendance, I mean, my question would be, do we need to invigorate attendance? I mean, it certainly, I'm sure it would. The economic impact is certainly,
Do you feel like maybe to invigorate, if we really, if the city is underutilized in the art world, that maybe a piece of sculpture in a different part of town that's underutilized would be more beneficial to move the public around and not have it all concentrated in the same area? Do you think that's an economic consideration the city should think
I'm
about?
always happiest when the park is quieter, when I go to Canal Front personally, because I'm walking my very reactive dog, but that's just me, that's a personal.
I mean, there's a
opinion.
question, like, is it really about the benefit of Lewis or the benefit of the
We answered
park?
that with Betsy Reamer indicating that the Chamber of Commerce is in favor of this, because it will increase.
So the next page is number 6. It's a long application. We're going to go through it as it's written. All right. Are there any other just alternate sites you wish us to consider? This is halfway down the page, and the answer is no. So that means that this application is not about the Cape Spirit in general. We're not talking about the idea of it, or even the concept of it, or how beautiful it is at all. We're looking at it only in this specific place where those pictures showed us it should be, right?
right.
Right.
Can I add, Mr. Chairman?
No, just wait.
No?
No. This is a closed session. We're not taking comments from the public.
A lot of people here, I think they like to hear what.
Well, you know what, Ed? It's not your meeting. So
I think
we're going to
part of
finish.
this meeting.
You have been part of the meeting, so we're going to continue our business. And when we finish, there will be time for you to talk. All right, it says present a detailed timeline. This is the application page number 7. It says design completed. Foundation, a recommended concept is established. Now, that's not a timeline. Construction to begin in the future when the project is approved. Bring to site blank, place it on base blank, installation blank, utilities to be incorporated with a design in the future. So I guess I'm wondering, do we have a detailed timeline here?
No.
I think it's very difficult to have a detailed timeline until it's approved.
I agree with you completely. It's difficult to have a detailed timeline. And this is what we asked for in the application. I think that's very difficult to have a detailed timeline
Well, which
without
comes first, the chicken
any
or the
idea.
egg?
Well, I think what we need to do
You
is,
can only go on.
we're just going to go by what we have. That's what we're looking at. The difficulties, this is a really difficult process. A municipality getting a public permanent sculpture averages 2 years to get it approved. There are so many, it's the truth. I mean, there's so many, there are a lot of people that have that are partners.
Why don't
And,
we just continue on?
all right, we'll continue on.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing is we need a lot more information here that isn't, I mean, timeline, we could at least have what needs to be done very clearly, no matter when it's gonna start and when it's gonna end, like, is this, so there's a lot
There's no
here that's
information.
missing
All right.
No information.
So,
besides just
so
the timing.
Well, to a certain extent, the timeline is guided by how much money it's going to cost and how easily or difficult it is to raise that money. So even if we were to put a timeline in, and I'm speaking now as a member of Art in Bloom, not of PAC, I don't think a timeline is possible because we don't know how long it will take to raise the money.
okay.
Well, and that could also be in here. And also like
But in any case, we're just going by the, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely agree. It's almost impossible, given what we have here, to have a detailed timeline. Now, the next page is the artworks information. The marine grade steel, its size is 20 feet tall. Installation requirements. This is pretty interesting. The installation requirements are an engineered foundation with specifications exceeding the maximum expected dynamic load of the sculpture, access to the park, installation crew, and the use of a crane to lift it into position. And then it has maintenance requirements. Light cleaning of atmospheric grime as local conditions determine. Life expectancy is 50 years. Anybody want to comment on this page?
I've got some thoughts. So I've gone through the application.
Can you pull up slide number, it says Nancy.
Julian? Is that on your thumb drive, Cliff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you, go ahead, you can talk while we're digging this up.
So I want to thank everybody, because obviously you've put a lot of time and effort and work into this, and I think the concept is exciting, and, you know, I'm all about bringing art to Lewis. But just to give you a little bit of information about my background is that my career has been in the museum world for 40 years. 26 of those years were at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and also a year at the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia. So what my job was, actually, which is why I feel that I can speak on this application and weigh in on it. I was in charge of moving artwork, and I was a project registrar and a permanent collection registrar responsible for the movement, logistics, and installation of exhibitions and artwork. So I've had direct experience in installing very large-scale sculptures, and that includes the approval process leading up to those installations. A couple were permanent installations. Most of those were temporary installations for exhibitions. What you'll see on your screen here is a project that I worked on in 2012. This is a stainless steel. This one, I think, relates most closely. I've done a lot of different sculpture, but this one, material-wise, I think relates a little bit to Cape Spirit. It's bigger. It's at the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia. It's Ellsworth Kelly's Barnes Totem. It's stainless steel, 40 feet high. We installed this in April 2012. And the thing about this was a longer process, and we were working directly with Ellsworth Kelly and his studio. All of the engineering and logistic questions, especially the engineering, because this was in the city, so we had a lot of back and forth with Philadelphia license and inspections. We had to have all of that in place before we even signed off on anything, any contracts. And that's the way we've always done it in the museum world. And I've worked with city entities, and I think that it's really important because you don't want to start making promises and going down a road without having all these details in place. And I know that one of the things that I think is really important that we have is to have this kind of engineering expertise come in and look at the exact location. This is what we're proposing with Cape Spirit is 20 feet high. So we would want engineering to look at that first, and also DENREC, because I understand now that this is a brownfield site. As I said, all of these, or this particular sculpture, I've got a couple other examples, but they really don't relate as much as the Kelly does. In Cape Spirit's case, the examples that you've given for the engineering questions and how it would be installed, they're pieces of a different medium. They're stone. I know Rick Rothrock. I've known him for like 35 years. He came to my wedding. We have a little sculpture of his. He's a stone sculptor. He's absolutely brilliant, and he's a master of his craft in stone. I honestly have never seen anything that he has done in stainless steel or in metal at all. And maybe he has, and maybe it's something small that I haven't seen, but his public works of art are not stainless steel. They're stone. They have a different level of maintenance involved. They do not need as much maintenance. One of the other things that we found about this particular piece, which is, from what I understand from the studio, is also marine grade, Corten steel. We needed to clean this a lot. It became very aesthetically unpleasant to look at. After a couple weeks, we put it up. It was pristine, and a couple weeks later, it was all spotted. And it's just, and this is in like a closed courtyard in Philadelphia. It's not, it doesn't get a lot of traffic. Having something right next to the canal, I think you're optimistic when you say that it's not gonna need a lot of maintenance. Who would be doing that maintenance? Would you be bringing in an object conservator to do that? That's very expensive. They charge about $50 an hour. Who's gonna pay for that cost? It's all of these things that are built into a permanent installation that we need to look at carefully. I mean, I love the idea of it, but we really need to do our due diligence here. And we also need to make sure it's safe. One of the things about the weight of the sculpture, and I know that you're saying that Rick has fabricators. I was speaking with Frank Marcotti. He's with the U.S. Art Company in Boston. I've worked with him for probably the last 25 years. He and his company have rigged in many of the outdoor sculptures that I've installed over the years. And he estimates on the dimension of the sculpture and the materials, he's saying he thinks it's probably closer to 2, perhaps 3 tons based on the dimensions and materials.
Is that assuming the pipe is solid?
Is it solid or is it?
No, it is not.
It's not
No,
solid,
that-
okay.
Actually,
Okay, one other thing I don't think we got to this in the application.
you put that in your application that
Yeah.
it's 2 tons already. That's on your paper.
Whatever, but, you know,
I think it's just, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Regardless of that, I mean, it's
okay.
even if it's 1 ton, it's big, it's heavy. We really need to make sure that where you're proposing that it be installed is safe. The other part that I think is optimistic, and because this is something I've also had experience with, people are going to try to climb it. I know that the knot is really high up, but you'd be surprised at the ingenuity of people who want to climb these things. The Sculpture Garden in Philadelphia, people were trying to climb things, and they'd bring rope with them. We had the Barnett Newman we had, which was 25 feet high, and it's called a broken obelisk. It's a pyramid, and then the obelisk is broken at the top. And you look at it and you think there is no way to get up there, and people were trying to climb that. Now, we had constant camera surveillance so that we could say, get off the sculpture, and, it didn't happen, but, at night at the canal, there's people down there, there's drinking. You don't want anybody to get hurt.
We've had that happen in this area.
Yeah, yeah, it's, what I did at the museum, a lot of my job was insurance and liability for making sure that artwork was safe. Not just safe to protect the artwork, but protect the people. It's something big, there's a lot of different facets that we really need to look at with it. It's, the idea is there. I appreciate the enthusiasm, I really do, because we love art, that's why we're here. But we have to look at this for safety reasons and, really be diligent about it.
Let's go back to this. We've
Okay,
gotten ahead of
good,
ourselves.
yep.
can I just ask a question, please?
Sure.
When you're talking about the engineering and so on and all that was required to be in place before the sculpture, I don't know whether it was purchased or what, but.
Before, no, it was fabricated, before it was
Okay,
fabricated.
before it
yeah.
was fabricated. Who paid for that?
The Barnes Foundation,
Right, so you were lucky that you had a foundation that could pay for that.
yeah.
Right.
It seems to me that if we're raising money to buy something like this in order to gift it to the city, that the approval in general could be given subject to the engineering studies and so on and so forth coming later, because without those, it's not going to happen anyway.
Well,
I hear you.
I hear what you're saying, but
Let's,
my experience is we had the approval in place after.
Yeah, but you're asking somebody to spend a lot of money doing this
Yeah, it was a risk.
and still not know whether the approval has been given.
That's true. But that's how we were able to ensure it.
And therefore, you know, if you've got a foundation who's willing to cough up that sort of money, that's great. But in this case, it would be the citizens of Lewis who'd be coughing up the money.
Well, it's the same
Okay.
thing if people give a gift to a museum. They have to make sure the gift is going to be able to put in a place if they're going to give it. So,
Right.
I mean, I think they're very,
So, you know, it's really hard to get the money to spend on something like that, not knowing whether the thing will ever happen in the first place.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's
Okay,
a
well,
risk, but
So moving back to page 8, there are a couple of things. I mean, I do know that a 12-foot piece of the stainless steel that you've specified weighs 1,188 pounds. So I don't know how much it's going to weigh. We don't know what it's going to weigh because it really hasn't been designed structurally anyway. So I think the maintenance issue is serious. I do know that, especially around here, because I have one of these bars near our house, there's a thing called, what's it called? It's a tea staining that happens. And also with a brushed surface, you don't have the same resistance of a stain of a polished steel surface, because the brush actually grates around and creates more places for rust to start. And marine grade, even if it's a 316L, which is what you're talking about, it does rust. Everything will rust. It's a lot slower than the other volume. I think that the next thing that was what Nancy was just talking about, page 9, we do not anticipate people climbing on the artwork. I think that's very optimistic, and I mean, I agree. People are going to have a few drinks. There's bars nearby, restaurants nearby. They wander in the park, and I mean, people try to, you know, climb poles all the time. I just find it's going to be definitely a hard thing to do to keep people off of it, given its location and its accessibility to the public. I think that we asked for conceptual design drawings, sketches, and maquettes, and we got more pictures of your same model. So if you're looking at this, what we're really looking to see is how is it going to be constructed. I mean, if this is you don't go to the city of Lewis and say, approve my house and then I'll go get the drawings done. I mean, this is like building. It's like building a house, and I know it's expensive. It's expensive to spend all that money up front. But I think the alternative creates an enormous amount of liability, and we don't have anything with the specifications on how it's going to get built or put together. There is page 10. We have this drawing. Everyone has seen it of a foundation concept. I'm assuming, Tony, that you guys are not really thinking this is. I mean, it's just a sketch by the artist.
No, it's not by the artist, it's by an engineer.
Okay. Well, here's the sketch of the engineer. It's a piece of, it's not engineered to withstand with any standards. It basically has two, what would you call those things?
Helical piles.
helical piles that will be down in the earth. They'll be underwater, because if it's 4 feet from the 4 feet from the bulwark, these will be sitting underwater all the time. This is engineered to be a 12-inch deep piece of concrete, 24 wide, and the concrete is that is supposed to be buried in the ground. There's not that much ground there, and I would feel that that this drawing is probably completely inappropriate for what the location, and that's why we have to get an engineer to do it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I think we should just move on. Obviously, we don't have the specifications we need
Okay.
in that area, so I think just move on to the next part of the application.
Okay.
I think all the points were made about the details that we need really to make a decision. If we don't have it, we don't have it.
Okay. Okay. The next page is budget. It says materials and supplies, Marine Gate 316, $150,000 for stainless steel. There's the thickness, fabrication, engineering, finishing, foundation, installation, sculpture, and transportation. That's a pretty interesting number. Is that based on, when did you get that number? Because it's been from last time you got that number.
Ed, don't ask me.
When?
I said ask Ed, do not ask me.
And when did you get, how long did you get that number?
Okay, so I'm allowed to talk now? Sue, you have that information as to numbers we have there?
When we applied to the Delaware Division of the Arts in January.
Sue, could you come up to the microphone, please? Thank you.
And we got this information when we asked Rothrock, excuse me, for these specs when we applied to the Delaware Division of the Arts for a grant. That was in January.
This year? Okay. All right.
Fairly recent.
Okay. Because you always worry about when you start a project like this with the cost of raw materials going up, and it could lead to once you get into it, if you're into it, and stainless steel especially, it could be, it could be a liability if the price isn't guaranteed. When you have the materials and supplies, now this $150,000, is this broken down at all? Or is this just do you have a contract with the artist?
Just a ballpark.
Okay.
We have a contract, we don't have approval. No contract.
I think that.
Yeah, we don't have approval. We have a contract.
Okay. And then the other thing, you got a $37,500 fee to Mr. Rothrock. And at this point, that's his commission, or does he run the $150,000? I don't know how that how's that deal supposed to work? I don't quite understand it.
What point of visit of yours? Really?
Okay.
What point?
Okay.
We're paying for it.
All right. I hear you. Let's go on to the next page. We asked the question, why is this the best sculpture for this spot? I got the park is not utilized, people visiting it. It relates to the surroundings. But if you are in fact trying to put a sculpture in this spot, would it not make sense to consider a different sculpture that's not so disruptive? Like, can you pull, Julian, can I get this Rothrock picture back from, it says inspiration. This is one of the ones you showed. Now, it seems to me that, I don't know if when you got all these people that like the idea of a sculpture, I think they all really like the idea of the sculpture, but I don't know if there was any debate as to why this sculpture was better than any other sculptures. And I know it relates to Lewis, because it was designed for a different place.
Okay.
So this sculpture of Mr. Rothrock's is really gorgeous. I mean, we all saw it up at the Briggs, and it's it's 1/10 the cost, and it's made out of stone. It's 1/10 the cost. It doesn't need, it does not need to be riveted into the ground. And I just was wondering, did you have any discussions amongst yourselves about, why wasn't there more options? Because the one we're looking at it's a huge project, and something, if we really need a place in the park, my thinking is this could be an appropriate, more modest, less sexy maybe, I don't know, I actually like it more, but.
In my mind, I think this is an awful lot of money to spend in a place where I'm not sure that we need a sculpture. I believe there's a lot going on in Canal Front Park. We've got overfalls, we've got a park that was designed to bring people to the water and give them access to the water. We have a natural shoreline that was in the park design. We have a playground there, we have gazebo, we have arbors. I'm not sure that we need another object in the park. I mean, that's what my question is. Do we need a sculpture in that park, and why?
Why do you need temporary sculpture in the park?
All right, so we're not doing we can talk about this later.
Because it's gone, it's there, and then it's gone.
But if you're raising all these questions, that you have to give Art in
I-
Bloom the
all I'm-
opportunity
No, no.
to answer them.
No, Tony,
Yes,
this is
you
the
do.
application. They
You're
answered,
raising questions from the application.
No,
and you need to give them the chance for a rebuttal.
my position is that we have an application.
I know that's your position, but it's not necessarily the position of
We-
the whole
we have
committee.
asked,
This is not a public hearing,
and we have asked the question,
it's a meeting.
I'm talking
we've
about
asked
the
the
committee.
question, why is this sculpture the best for your chosen spot? And I don't see an answer. And we did get off subject, but I don't see an answer to that question in this application.
Or I don't see that any other spots were considered.
Right.
Well, they talked with the sculptor and the Sebastian Morrow, or
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have the name correct, but they agreed that it was the best place for it. I mean, this is Art and Bloom's application, it's what they want. What do
Right.
they want? That's what I think we need to be,
Right.
it's,
Okay, we'll see it, and I think your point's well taken. We'll take that and move on. Number 13 says, do we have, can we, a web link to imagery sufficient to display mastery of their medium? Now, did anybody see a web link to a steel sculpture? All right.
What I would like to comment on that is that what you're looking at is a design by the artist, not the fabrication by the artist.
But he's planning to use steel,
And
not
the
stone.
fabrication will be done by somebody completely different. It's his design, but he will not be fabricating it, whereas when you're talking about his stone sculpture, then yes, he fabricates it as well as designs it.
Which happens all the time in the art world. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
understood
Sure.
that people make stuff who don't, design stuff and make stuff and they're different
Exactly.
things.
Okay, so moving on to through the pictures. Page 18. For new work, what are the nearest location of the artist's other works of similar design? It says it's not applicable, and I'm not sure. There isn't a similar design of his work available, so. I think that its proposed installation ensures a regional level of protection against theft. That is, I don't think anybody's going to walk away with this sucker. What is susceptibility to work to flood or wind damage? And the answer is none. And what is its susceptibility to to salt air corrosion, and they've answered none. Any comments?
The scientific information that we have would indicate that the natural elements of rain, for instance, will clean the sculpture naturally, and that particular marine grade stainless steel is actually designed to be in saltwater element.
Okay. I would tell you, I mean, so I've got some materials here from steel manufacturers in England and the US that would indicate that it does not clean itself. So we just disagree. I'd be glad to look at it, but I'm just looking at the fact that you don't think that there's any susceptibility of wind or flood damage on the application. Okay. Now the more interesting questions. Does this project improve the park for most people?
I think that's a subjective question, and there will be people who will come to the park to see this, just as there are people who come to the park to play at the tot lot or to see the overfalls. There'll be people who come to the park who never even look at this. It's what you're coming to the park for. In terms of the walking tour, the map you had, if people come to Lewis to explore, I think they may well visit every installation on that loop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how can you measure how many people are coming to see this? It will attract attention, and I think there will be some who come to see it, but they're gonna, people won't notice the mosaics. Some people will. That's,
Right.
I'm sure people drive over the bridge. I happen to notice the mosaics every single time I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet plenty of people drive over the bridge and,
Well,
that's,
people
They're
will love
dodging
it
the
and hate it.
bicycles.
that's the nature of
Okay.
humans, I think.
Does the next thing is about, would this installation change how we enjoy the park? I would say it would change it. Definitely. I mean,
Yes.
you're going to see more art.
In my mind, the question is, does it enhance?
Does it
or
improve?
distract from your experience?
Okay.
And
That's-
as far as change it, it's not going to change your physical, I mean, it's going to change the feel in certain spaces, but it's not going to change your physical, what you can do in the park by any means.
Yeah. Well, it will change it. The question is like, in which direction?
Well, no,
That
the
could
question
be
is, will it
opinion,
change it?
too.
And
Right.
Can I say something over here?
Yeah, Carol.
Carol,
Hi, we love you.
Somehow the host took my video away. But I would like to comment that there's been a lot of reference to all the activities in the park and lesser activities at this east end of the park. And I don't think that's bad. I mean, there's a space for people who want to sit and contemplate the beauty of their surroundings and the canal, etc. So we need to have a little peaceful area in the park too.
true.
That's a very good point. I hear you. I mean, I'm not sure whether we cover this here or later. Let's talk a little bit about what you just talked about. Does this has to do with other people's use of the park and how everybody uses the park? So, Julian, can I get your? The first thing I want to bring in is the thing down by the bottom that says view with. I'm going to go through like four Can you make that bigger? All right, so this is the view from your proposal of Tony in the space. And I guess there's one thing I'm trying to wonder, the two bases are supposed to be 8 feet apart, so they're going to be a little wider than this particular picture. Can you show me the view without? 1. So this is the same picture without. You know, I see that it's not that big a difference. I mean, it's a difference like if you're having a wedding, but it's not that big a difference. But go back, now look at view without number 2. So what you're seeing here, can you make that one bigger?
I can't see them at all.
Oh, it's a really beautiful picture. Okay. So what I'm looking at is a piece of art, architectural art. I think that is, when I see this, I mean, obviously there's you can spin it as much as you want, but to me it's sort of wide open, and I think that piece itself is elegant and it was expensive, and it's a signature part of the park. Can you go back to number 3, view without number 3? I mean, this is a big wide open space. If you look through and you're looking at the shoreline on the other side, and you have that sculpture in the middle, you won't see the sculpture. It's going to be buried in the shoreline, and what you're going to lose is picture number 2, which to me there's a magic to that place, and the magic is the volume and the architecture, and sometimes the negative space is the most important space, and I think that the idea of putting the sculpture in this particular place visually would, even though, I mean, I don't know if there's any bigger fan for sculpture than me, but around here, but I really love sculpture. I just find it here would be really disconcerting, and it would be really hard to see. Can you show?
Architect you had at your talk earlier this year situated it there.
I understand that. So going back to
He did not say that he was in favor of the sculpture. He said if a sculpture was to be placed, this would be the best place for it.
What he said is he placed that sculpture
okay.
at that point in the park.
I think that's going to, let's not do the he said, she said at this point. I've heard it both sides. I heard it's conditional. I mean, I've talked to Rodney about it, and and he did say that there was a reason for putting it there. He didn't say, we didn't talk about the reasons for not putting it there. So I just take that with a grain of thought. So let's go back to something called park sightlines. So this is a map of the park. When we talked about how how this thing will be situated and how it would affect everybody. Now, I don't know whether you can zoom in on that a little bit more. But, okay. So if you see up near the very top towards the left, there's a line that's going straight down towards your potential location. So from that over, now, go ahead and pull it back a little bit so you can see it. You see where we put the temporary location? It's just off the top. Here, so this is where the temporary location is, up here. Right. If you're up here, or you're at Dover Falls, or you're walking that gallery, this is your sight line to your location. It goes right through this thing. It blocks it, it blocks it off, so maybe you'll see the top. There's another sight line we're gonna look at, which is from up here, the overhang, that's right here, that looks down. This is the area where you'll be able to see it from. If you see it from this direction, this will be your background.
The inn will be
You
the
can't see it-
backdrop.
You cannot see it from this way unless you're underneath it.
Or you go across the
So,
canal.
it's from the canal. So you really, you have very few sight lines in which you have a clear view of it. So can you hit me with the view from the back west slide? Julian. I want the view from the back west, it won't matter. So when you're looking at it from the west side, and you're looking at the sculpture, and it's really beautiful. I mean, that sculpture, when you're holding it up there by your sky, in the sky, and you're looking at it by itself, it is gorgeous. I mean, I really like it. But when you're looking at it on the ground, this is what's going to be behind it. And it's only going to be about 45, 50 feet away from it.
Can I say something? It's right in regard to this. That David Collins said to me when I showed him Cape Spirit. He really liked the sculpture, but what he said to me was, why would you want to place a sculpture there when there are so many other distractions? He said, you won't even be able to see it. And that's exactly what he said. And I mean, and he's the director of Storm King. He ought to know about placement of art and sculptures. And when he said that to me, that really hit home with me, that yeah, there are too many things going on in that park. And why do we need another piece?
Okay. We don't need to see the other slides. I think you understand the point. And I think that this is the same problem that we had when the place was chosen for the Sentinels, because it's really hard to see because of the trees, the power lines, the way it's designed. We go too fast. You know, if you go to the right place, that's a really beautiful and fun place to be. But 80% of the time, you can't even see them when you go by because of all the blur in the background. So it's not the sculpture by itself. It's the place. It's the location. That's why we had that thing last week. And so that's what we're talking about.
Are we ready to, are we finished with the
Almost.
application?
Almost. 2 more pages. So I guess we are asking about the budget and the detail, and you've stated that there is no contract with the artist. That's, we also asked what legal entity will take responsibility, noting that ensuring it before completion will be the responsibility of your organization. Before the city accepts it, it becomes your liability. And I don't think I have that in concrete. It just, I got it once it's approved that it'll all be outlined in a contract with a fabricator and engineer and the rigging company. I would say, as a person, I definitely would want to know who was legally responsible for liability for this thing before I got into it. Did the designer in this park include this place as a place for sculpture? That wasn't answered. I did talk to some people back when the park was being developed, and the comment I had was, well, that particular place was designed to be a mixture of wood and grasses. It was supposed to be, you know, this kind of textural offset to the canal in natural materials. Now, obviously, putting a sculpture together in stainless steel is going to have a great dramatic effect, and sometimes that drama is a really good thing, and sometimes the drama is distracting. And the guy said, well, you know, this place is not empty, you know. It's full of space. It doesn't need to be filled. It is what it is, and it's what it should be, and that's how it's, you know, quietly part of the park, like you were talking about, Carol. It's you know, it's a little contemplative little area over in the end. I don't think that, so I don't think that the park ever envisioned putting a piece of sculpture there, but I don't know. It asks, does this add clarity to the park design or confuse it? I have an answer that says you, that you can, that's all in the eye of the beholder. So, I mean, that's true. I think what will the park's primarily function, what will it affect the park's primary function as shareable open space? I think it will definitely affect how people use that space and how they feel about that space. And whether that takes, I mean, to some people it will add to the park, and some people it will detract from the park. I don't think there's a one answer. So that's pretty much the end of it. We have a note saying that our application is complete, and we went through a process, so I'm assuming we have a complete application, and we have reviewed it. Now,
At this stage, Cliff, I'd like to take just one issue with your sight lines.
Page 9.
I think it's interesting that you don't necessarily see the whole sculpture all at the same time. It creates an intrigue. I can hear you saying about some of the temporary sculptures that went into George H.P. Smith Park, for instance, that they were not visible from many places.
Right.
But when you walk around the corner and you suddenly see something, it creates intrigue.
No, I
and
agree.
This is exactly the same.
I just think it's a little different because there's not a lot of corners to walk around. You're going to walk to it, or you're going to walk away from it.
No,
But
looking at the sight line that you drew, you would see the top of the sculpture and you would say to yourself, perhaps, what is this? Let me walk over and find out.
I would.
Exactly.
Okay, I got a couple other things to touch on before we move on, and one of them is this policy that the city has. I think we passed a few of those out. In case there's any questions, number 6 says that the committee can ask for any additional information and may modify the form of the application as it wants, so I don't want to belabor the fact that we're asking too many questions. It also says that this committee will be responsible for all stages of the process for work through any installation. Now that means we needs to be supervising it. I don't want to supervise it, but we need to address that because that's the city policy. And so we have to look at this at all the stages of development, and that includes all the things that you don't necessarily want everybody in the world involved with. That's item number 9, the first page. First page, number 9. It says also the committee will offer to meet with the applicant, and we have offered to meet with you guys for almost a year. I feel like we have, I don't think that there's any rush on approving this because, I mean, again, and I wouldn't approve it on a rush anyway without being sure of the liability, the legal standing, and that we're actually going to approve something that can be built within a budget. I think that we are supposed to be considering the proposed installation and the maintenance plan, and that's something that we would definitely need to see. The city may require an endowment for installation. Let's say we feel that it needs to be cleaned once a month. We don't know that. But if we did know that, that would be a responsibility for the providing party that would be put into a contract. Because when the city does this, we do this through a deed of gift. The deed of gift will have responsibilities for all the parties laid out and agreed to. And there will be, you know, long-term liabilities for even though you gift things. It says the city shall incur no costs for the installation unless approved in advance. And I think that I'm not sure what kind of ideas we had about site testing with whom, but I don't think the city council has approved anything. I do know that the DENREC situation is very open-ended, and although it's probably mitigatable, nobody knows the cost involved. Insurance, the city is not going to be taking, the city also says they will not pay for the insurance of for the installation or utilities or those coverages. And I think that that's really, the big thing I wanted to bring out is that, it looks to me like you're asking the city in one place to pay for this work and you're going to pay them back. And that was, I don't know exactly where that was, but we saw that. Okay. I'll find it for you. Excuse. I'm not, the art, okay. We're going to go, I'll find that for you. Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I will get to it.
If there,
Okay,
Cliff,
Peter.
If there are comments, Peter, excuse me. If there are comments, people need to come to the microphone and state their name and address for the record.
But we're not inviting comments right now. We're
But
going to stay with this.
if they're talking, they need to come up to the microphone.
Okay.
So if you're calling on Peter, Peter needs to come to the microphone.
Okay. Well, Jane Ellen, Jane.
My address is 31929 Carneros Avenue, Lewis, Delaware. And
Thank you. Thank you.
I felt that this had gone far beyond what I felt that the comments were not appropriate to the situation.
We heard your
Okay,
comments.
thank you, Jane Ellen.
Thank you.
And so I am coming forward so that you can.
I'll find
Thank
it. I
you.
think there's a quote in here.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we've heard your comments. I went over the city's requirements, and I think that, we've done the application.
So we need more information.
Do we need any more information from the committee? Anybody else have any questions?
Do we have enough information to make a decision?
I think we have enough information to make a decision, and
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application. I'm very much impressed with the letters from the Overfalls, the Chamber of Commerce, the Southern Delaware Tourism. I've left out a couple of the organizations. The other thing that impresses me is the track record of Art and Bloom. I really feel like we can cut them a little bit of slack in, they need approval for this before they can get started. I really feel like some of the things we've seen tonight are like a case against this piece of art, and that bothers me. I have no problem at all approving it. Whether or not it enhances the park, draws visitors, I think is up for debate. Whether or not this is the best place for the sculpture, a couple of people have said yes. Everyone involved with the park, the overfalls, et cetera, have said fine. To me, that's not our decision. It's what Lewis and Bloom wants, and that's the end of it. I have no doubt that if there are issues concerning the contract, the engineering issues, any environmental issues that come up, that Lewis and Bloom will work with the city and iron those out. I really do think we need to take a vote.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Tony, are you going to recuse yourself? Are you going to vote on this?
No, I'm a member of this committee.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about their experience with this application?
We would want to.
There's been a motion to
Vote individually, or?
Yeah, we could, well, we'll vote individually, but I think you might want to talk about the motion, talk to the motion, explaining what your vote is, I guess. You, go ahead. What are you going to?
No, there is
Excuse
the
me.
opportunity for discussion after a motion and a second.
Thank you.
So I would like to approve it with the stipulations of all of the engineering. Like, I mean,
Yes.
that to me is 100% the bottom
Yes.
line of all of,
Okay.
I think the sculpture is great.
I totally agree with
But I
Heidi.
100% think that I mean, if this sculpture falls down, I feel responsible for this sculpture.
But
So,
if Lewis and Bloom, I mean, Art and Bloom allows it to fall down or installs something improperly, they're the ones who are out that money, and the people.
it's not about the money, it's
The
about.
people
it's
who
not-
contributed.
There was
to
a
it.
piece of sculpture in Rehoboth that fell on
Oh,
my
I know, and
friend.
killed
And
two little
actually,
boys, yes.
Yes, so I think that is of the
So-
utmost.
So
agree.
Heidi, here's my question. I mean, how do you, I mean, you can't make an agreement to agree. And so
Well, I'm agreeing to approve.
But wait.
Cliff,
There's a
I'm
motion on the
agreeing-
floor.
Cliff, I'm agreeing to approve
But there's
for
a,
them to go forward and get their things. And that's what we're,
Yeah.
okay, you want to, Barry?
I think this whole discussion is about location. It's not about the piece of art, and that's really not what we were here to talk about. I think it's a wonderful piece of art. I think it would be a nice addition to the city. I'm just not sure that we need a sculpture in that park. And I'm on the park commission, and I have a background in parks and recreation development. So I've been around parks and this area for a long time. And I think there's other places that this sculpture would be placed that would be much better. It would show off the grandeur of this piece of art. It would be able to be seen better, where it would have a nice backdrop, where it wouldn't be competing with the boats that go by and the restaurant across the street and
This is his opinion.
Excuse me, this is his,
Well,
A custom
this is
order?
his comments.
Order?
we've got 66 acres.
That's a good point. So I think that I have a great deal of confusion we have a motion and it's a very specific one and it has not been amended yet. I think that the motion is to approve. And I got to make sure we all understand what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the sculpture. We're talking about saying this sculpture can go in this place. My feeling is that I have no problem with the concept of the sculpture. I have serious issues with the place, some of which we haven't even discussed. I feel like that this whole proposal wants to put wants to get their idea approved without doing your homework. And I know, you know, the homework is having a contract, having a basis for a contract. Contract can be subject to approval by the state. That's the way it's usually done. I think that your idea of a budget that's unknown, and we don't know the work, we don't know who's fabricating the work, we haven't seen a single piece of picture of anything that anybody's fabricated. So we're kind of confusing this idea, this ideal thing, and with the reality of this would be a wonderful object, let's put it here. We talked about this, you know, at the meeting where you have a sculpture looking for a location or a location looking for a sculpture. This is the third place that you've asked to put, that you've considered the sculpture. So obviously, this sculpture, you know, has legs. People love it, and they want to see it somewhere. And the question is, do we want to put it in the park and let it go forward? I think that it's really hard to say conditional on engineering because we don't even know, we don't even have drawings for sculpture. And I mean, I've been involved with a lot of friends who are artists, and they do proposals, and they do a lot of work, and they spend a lot of money. And I think that it's a worthwhile thing to do, but you're expecting us to accept this on the fly. There's no contractual, all right, it's my, thank you. There's no contractual obligation. You have no contract with the artist. You have no backup plans. What happens if something happens to him and you're in the middle of it? I mean, there's so many things that get involved. What happens if Denrec finds a real nasty thing down there? Who's going to be on the hook? Who's going to be on the hook for a $20,000 or $30,000 repair to the land? And why would you risk that?
Well,
Look, it's a site. I think you're looking at I know you're looking at a brownfield site. DENREC has to require that you test the soil before you disturb it, send that off and have it tested. Then it has to come back and be determined on where it's going to go. But we can't test the soil because we don't know we don't have a design for a base. We don't know how big it's. We don't know how big the space is going to be. We don't know the conditions. Is it going to go down 6 feet? Is it going to be 2 feet? You know, we just don't have enough information to even get an accurate taste. So I think that we're just rushing this without doing the thoughtful building blocks that you need to do. And I feel like for that reason, not against, you know, no one's ever done this before. This in Lewis, this is a big deal, professional installation. It's the cost of a house or 2 houses. And to say we want to do it without spending any money is just impractical in terms of the liabilities that the city will end up having to deal with.
So, Cliff, the city did contact
I know,
DENREC,
yeah.
and there is a requirement for a work plan to dig in that location, and it would be supervised. The work would be supervised. So we do have some answer to that.
Right. I mean, I spoke with them too, and the process is several. There's several steps to the process, and once you find out what you have,
Right.
you have to deal with
But there
it.
would be an environmental consultant on site.
So who's going to pay for that?
I think that that's something that can be worked out. It doesn't have to be decided at this time.
Well, see,
I think
I've-
we're talking about.
Sheridan, you've spoken now for an hour and a half. I got 15 minutes to speak.
That's right.
You said after you were done.
I'm not done. Okay,
You're
Ed,
doing the application, and we can speak.
we're not done. We're in the middle of a discussion and a vote.
Call for a vote.
So we're having a discussion after the vote. That's what we do.
There's been a number of questions asked,
Haven't voted.
and I'd like to be able to answer those
Ed,
questions.
thank you. I appreciate your effort, but we got to finish what we're doing, or we'll be here till morning. So anyway,
Well, then
I
let's have
haven't
the
heard
vote.
from Nancy.
Well,
Let's
we're
have the vote.
okay, now, right now, the application, as I see it here, and I've explained what my background is, what I need to see before I can approve a sculpture. And if this is the application that we're voting on, I have to vote no. I know that you've done a lot of work, I appreciate that, but I don't feel that you maybe are not taking seriously, because I saw the people kind of chuckling when you were talking about the safety aspect of that. And it's really, the liability, it's a serious thing, and this is something that I did for 40 years. So I, as the application stands now, I vote no.
Well, we haven't actually voted yet.
Wait, Carol,
Heidi, I have a question for you.
Carol.
I'm sorry, Carol, there you are.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Is there such a thing as preliminary approval?
Well, that's kind of, we've had this discussion with the city, can you partially approve it? I mean, I don't think that that is always a good idea, because what happens is, if you don't have your ducks in a row, they scatter all over the place. And when the city's going to be involved with this, there's going to be a lot of liability. And we feel like we're working for the city, that our job is to do the due diligence. And this is what the due diligence is. And I mean, I don't see that, I mean, we haven't even talked about the aspect. Jane Ellen, please, can we have order? Okay, I think,
for that at one point.
I mean,
We've
all
already
right,
asked for
but hold on. I think that's a great idea. And so I would propose that we vote this proposal down, and, wait,
please,
my
please
turn, my
hold
turn.
your comments.
This proposal is on the agenda, and if we vote the proposal down, and we can meet next week with you guys to do the new proposal and get it right and make it all work together. And that's exactly what we would like to do. All right, so I'd like to, would you like to amend your proposal, all right, so.
I voted, she voted, you vote.
You haven't voted, have you
Yeah,
voted?
I voted yes, I want engineering to be.
Okay,
It has to be in, you
It
can't
has-
have that unless it's in
You-
the amendment.
The only thing right now is yes,
I mentioned engineering,
yes.
I mentioned environmental.
The only thing that, wait a second,
Installation.
can we read
One
back? Oh, we don't have the,
person Could one
we don't have
person
anybody to
talk
read
at a
back.
time,
I
please?
believe that your
Could we
you
have quiet,
propose-
could we have quiet in the room,
I
please?
said contractual, environmental, engineering issues.
okay. I think that your original, that's not what you said.
That wasn't
that
your
wasn't what
motion.
you-
Your motion
That-
was to,
That feels great.
accept
what I
the,
said
to
we-
accept this
they could
proposal.
work.
Hold on. The motion was to accept the proposal.
No,
And
that
it was
not the
seconded.
case.
Floor right now.
What
No,
was-
I said other things.
It's exactly
with
what
it. I said other things
Denise
with
is
it,
saying.
that
But
there-
that's great.
if there were issues that came up regarding environment, contractual, or engineering issues, they would be worked out with the city by Art and Bloom. And I said we could cut them some slack
But
in
that's
doing so.
different.
Is that
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Can I get, all
Well,
right,
then we can amend it.
all right, could we,
I'm fine with that.
So,
We have to
Could-
agree to the amendment then.
Yeah,
yes,
so-
so let's
so-
agree to the amendment.
wait,
Yes, I agree to the
it
amendment.
has to be written out,
It has to be read back into.
and we don't have a secretary.
Well, right, so,
All right, so we're gonna do it, we'll do this the old-fashioned way. I would like to lobby to take up Jane Ellen's idea. And I would like to lobby that you change your, or withdraw your, so we can work
together.
with Jane Ellen and work together and put
If
this
it's
together.
voted- If we vote, why can't we still work with her if it
It's
doesn't
different.
pass?
It's different.
how,
It is different.
All right, I'll amend it.
All right, thank you. Can I get a different motion? Can I get a different
Well-
motion?
wait, what happened with Denise's motion? Are you
I'm-
retracting
She
it?
I'm
Are you,
withdrew it.
saying we can amend it.
Okay, so
All right,
I would
To
move
what?
that.
So
We have-
Nan-
well,
Nancy,
Nancy has it written down. This is perfect.
So, if we're going to take the application and start,
Just-
basically get with Jane and.
so just,
So
all you have
I
to
would-
do,
All
we're-
right, so
that's
I
separate
would
from the
move
vote.
that the application as it is today be denied.
Okay, is there a second for that? She's voted, all right.
And we're going to,
We're going to deny it. If we vote for this, it's a denial, and then we'll start working with the committee about, working on our building blocks, seeing what's realistic and what's not.
We still have enough of the questions out there from the.
That's correct.
You said this is not a public meeting, but it is a public meeting.
That's
No
not,
one says
it's legally, it's a different thing.
Yeah, Cliff
It's-
said it wasn't a
It's a
public meeting.
public meeting,
So is
but
there any other
comments
discussion
do
on the
not
motion on the
have to
floor?
be
Let's-
taken.
There's any other motion on the floor? It's been motion made and
I
seconded.
haven't even
I have
heard
a
what the
question.
motion is.
I have a question about my motion. Am I correct in understanding that if we vote on it and it's voted down, we cannot work with them in any way?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
The purpose of this is to get this mess behind us and sit down with Art and Bloom and say, how can we make this work? And go over what's practical and what's not practical, so we can get a more detailed and useful application. Still have to go to the city.
Right. It
So-
still has to go to Parks and Rec and Mayor and City Council.
All right, so I'm going to have Nancy read back her motion one time.
As the application is
I
written.
can't hear you.
I would move that the current application be denied.
Okay, it's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 So we need a new motion.
Opposed? 1, 2. Okay, the ayes have it. The motion is denied. We need to set up a meeting with Art and Bloom specifically right after. We can talk about that now if you want.
Exactly.
We don't need a motion to talk to you guys.
We can make a
Because I could have answered a lot of these questions that you folks had, a lot of these questions, but I was denied that right in a public hearing.
It's not a public
This is
hearing,
not
it's
a public hearing, Ed. It is not a public hearing.
And that's fine.
But also we
Listen,
asked
Barry,
you
I
to-
was on city council, and I listened to lots of people
Good for you.
talk
You were
back
chairman of the
to
committee,
council.
too.
Number one, with
The-
respect to your side, all the time, I haven't talked in an hour and a half.
I'm sick of sitting here as a citizen of Lewis.
Well, then leave.
Excuse me.
All right, so
I
the
think
floor is open for public comments right
I
now.
just want to get this one point in, and that with respect to Barry's point about the location of this art, in August of 2021, we asked the chairman of this committee to work with us to find a location for Cape Spirit, and his one-word answer was, no. I don't know if any of you know that, but I have a number of people.
You've told us twice, because I said you
The
should.
answer was no.
It's because
Well,
I
we've
told you
Why
you got.
don't we work with this chairman now in the future?
The reason I said
So-
no is because you were
Going
supposed to
done.
come back to the
I'm
committee.
sorry.
Okay.
So, Cliff,
All right, Peter is I'm recognized Peter Issel.
Thank you. My name is Peter Issel. I'm chair of the Friends of the Canal Front Park. By the way, in getting people to the park, we had 2,000 children in Easter to come into the park.
Peter, could you talk into the
We're worried we're gonna
microphone,
have too many
please?
people. The Greater Lewis Foundation, no one has mentioned the Greater Lewis Foundation. They're the ones, Jim Ford, former mayor, Dennis Forney, head of the Cape Gazette, all these people really raised the money and created the park. No one has even asked them whether this statue is appropriate for the park. No, they have not been addressed. Jim Ford has not been asked. Joe Stewart has not been asked. I don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense to me. The other thing is the Canal Front Park Group likes the statue. I'm not sure we like it in our park, and we certainly don't like it where our wedding venue is, which is why, I don't know if you all know, that's where weddings take place. And the other is we're deadly worried about insurance. We already pay $3,000 a year for insurance. What if something goes wrong with it or something happens to it? We need to know that there's at least an endowment that will create a fund to clean it. There's going to be graffiti on it, you know that, to take the graffiti off and to do stuff. So again, I like the sculpture. I think it's a wonderful piece. It may be.
I resign from the board of, Front Park.
All right, I think that.
All right, Peter, are you,
Anyhow,
no, wait, Peter's not finished.
My point is, no one has communicated with the people that created the park.
Right.
Okay? Period.
Okay.
Pardon?
No, that didn't say that.
We sent a letter saying we approve, and I have a letter with it. We approve the concept of the sculpture. We did not approve the location. We said specifically, we did not approve the location.
But you approved it going into the park, Peter.
No, excuse me. His comments are on what you guys submitted. Peter, I mean.
Saying you have to go to the people at the Greater Lewis Foundation. They created the thing. And they did a wonderful job. I think you'll all agree with that. At least get their approval. That's all.
All right.
And I said, I'm on the Greater Lewis Foundation. I said I would help I would help arrange a meeting. I can't do more than that. Cliff,
Thank you very much, Peter. It says on the letter that you submitted that they're reserving their judgment on the actual location within the park. That's not an endorsement for this location. The application is for this location.
Yes, and that's the point.
I recognize Susan. Right.
Sue, could you just state your name and your address again for us? Thank you.
Sue Sandmeyer, I'm on the Art and Bloom Steering Committee, 16939 Beulah Boulevard, Milton, Delaware. What legal entity covers your temporary art?
City has a policy that includes our penalty. We get, and on the ones, the big one that we were going to do 2 years ago, we contracted for a rider that we had to pay for.
What covered effervescence, for example?
Effervescence was covered under the general liability policy.
The city's general liability
Yes.
policy? Because it was placed on city land. So
The
as
city
PAC-
rented it. The city rented it.
So as PAC, you can decide anything, any piece of art that you want, and you can take it any place you want without going through all of this that you've put us through tonight.
Well,
And it's okay, and it's covered.
We actually go through all of this amongst ourselves
Yeah,
at
we
the
do.
same meetings. If you guys came to more meetings, you would know, we go through the same thing. We go through the engineering, how's it going to be attached? We go through drawings of the design of the sculpture, how it's put together. We do that.
A lot of time on placemaking.
You know, and we sit
Where
down
the
with the
best
parks
places-
people, and we meet with the parks guys when we install it, and we say what makes sense, what's the point of view, how will it be approached. I mean, we do it. I mean, you just don't see it, but we do it. Not to this degree. This is a big deal. This is a permanent sculpture. We have to look at the rest of our lives, and it's a huge difference to me. The mess is the meeting and this application.
The mess
The
is
application's a mess.
process.
The application I find very incomplete.
If only you all would help us, or help anybody else who wants to bring art, but it's always like this.
I'm really sorry you feel that way. Is there anything else? Public? Okay.
If you have a comment, please come to the microphone and state your name and your address, please. Thank you.
Diane McReel, I live at 17448 Venables Drive in Lewis. I think this whole meeting has been a huge disappointment. It has come through with the left and the right. Your minds were made up before a word was said. Most of you, your minds were made up.
Well, we studied this for 6 weeks.
So I think I think there's room for improvement on both sides. But I think that the fact that Art and Bloom and the PAC committee are enemies is absolutely pathetic, childish, immature.
Absolutely.
It is pathetic.
We all agree.
I do.
I mean, I personally do not feel like Art in Bloom is my enemy. I think that what you're confusing I mean, it's very, there is an animosity here, but I feel like we are trying to help. You got your, Mr. Morrow came because we recommended him to him. You come up with the sculpture, it's because we recommended to Tony that you use the sculpture list from the state of Delaware. We have been quietly supporting you. It just doesn't work out in public, I guess. Please, state your name.
I'm Carol DeSabatino, 805 Savannah Road.
Carol, I'm sorry, can you just talk?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just want you to know, many of you are friends of mine. Many of you are acquaintances of mine. We're all citizens of Lewis that we love dearly. We're all here because we love Lewis dearly. And this makes me incredibly sad. I am so sad that for many reasons I'm sad because we're all here because we love Lewis. We all like art. I love the Canal Front Park. We have our boat there. My children play there. We've donated to the Canal Front Park. I love all the parks. We have no art in any of our parks. We have no public art in the city. And I'm sorry.
Take your time, take your time.
Do you hear me? But I've sat here all evening and I look at all of us and I just don't understand why, first of all, why we can't be one committee for Lewis, one art committee for Lewis, work together for the common good. I feel very sad tonight that everybody who wanted to speak, I'm sorry, Cliff, but everybody who wanted to speak was not allowed to speak. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's correct. And it breaks my heart that we all couldn't have our say. Those of us that were here in the audience were here out of, we feel very impassioned about this sculpture, about art. Some of the things that were said tonight were very untrue. Some of people's opinions were very scattered. And I don't want to keep you any longer than we are, but I just, there were so many times tonight I felt like speaking. Didn't seem appropriate, but I couldn't leave tonight without speaking. And I think that if everybody, Nancy, I respect you and I respect your opinion, I respect your expertise, I really do. Heidi, I love you, you're a friend of mine and my children, and I respect you and your expertise. I thank you for your, Barry, I don't know you well, but I know you're a nice man. You all are special, but I think we all are, and I think we all deserve respect for our feelings. And I don't think that that's been shown here tonight, and I don't think that was any of our intentions when we came here. And I'll just bid you all good night.
Carol, may I ask you a question? I mean, first of all,
of course,
I'm really sorry, seriously sorry that it came to this. The anxiety that we've gone through as we have been looking at this for a long time has caused a lot of angst for the people on this committee.
it shouldn't.
It
shouldn't.
When I copied you on that letter last month, after the thing was brought in, and I said, look, there's serious holes in this application. We need to talk about the maintenance. We need to talk about, I copied you on that.
Yes.
So you knew we had problems, and you didn't respond, and we got a letter saying, we're coming because this is complete, and I was asking for your input. I was trying to mediate this before it came to this committee meeting. I asked the mayor if we could have our own meeting devoted only to this.
Correct.
He said, no, we have to get this done. So the push to have this put on it was never my idea to have this meeting tonight.
But I believe that we asked to be put on the agenda about 6 weeks ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the way it worked is you submitted, we asked you, send it early, which you did, and then we looked at it and we said, well, it's missing this kind of stuff. And so we tried to go back and forth, but we couldn't get an answer back. And then there was pressure on the city government to have this meeting, and in my impression, I would have been much better. We have an installation we're all working on 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We would much rather have done this in May, and we asked to do it in May, and we were told, no, we were going to do it this week. And then I asked for a separate meeting where we could have had more talk time, but it's 9 o'clock, and you know, we didn't want it to go down like this, but we saw the only way we could proceed is look at it solely as the application and try to take all of the, you know, all the wonderful ideas and the imaginative interpretations out of it and just say, well, this piece of paper is not adequate for the information we need to make sure that the city and Peters Park and the city government, you know, feels protected going forward. And I'm really sorry it came like this. I would have done this meeting earlier. I wouldn't have done it so late. And you know, I'm very sorry that it ended this way. It was not our first choice, and I really apologize for everybody that had to suffer through it, because it was a mess. And I mean the meeting. I don't mean.
I don't like that word much.
I know.
That hurt my
Sorry.
feelings. A mess. It hasn't been a. Well, I think that our committee, our Art and Bloom committee, since the inception, since the first time we saw a picture of Cape Spirit, and since mostly when we heard Rick Rothrock's interpretation of Cape Spirit, it just got us in the heart. And I think that Art and Bloom's, I think what we've done in the past, and I think the way we operate a lot with our heart and our gut. And I think sometimes power or
ego.
Egos, whatever gets in the way is not appropriate for a small town like we are. And I think maybe if we could sit around and talk about it rather than sometimes, I don't know whether it has to be in a public forum all the time, maybe it does. My committee, the committees that I serve on know that I don't like to text, I don't like to do emails, I like to talk to people. And I do better talking to people, and I do better listening to people. And I think that when things go down in emails and text, sometimes it's without emotion. Well, I just couldn't leave here tonight without showing you what my emotion is. And if everybody was still here behind me, I think that they all have the same emotion I do for this project. And it being in Canal Front Park means, I've talked to a lot of people, and I could have had a lot of people here tonight to speak on its behalf. But that being said, you know, I don't want to beat it to death, but I just want you to know that I don't think anybody in Art and Bloom has any ill feeling, any animosity. I don't think anybody wants anything other than to bring art and heart to Lewis.
Well, thank you very much, and I heartily invite you, because your calm point of view and able to express yourself is really great, and we could really gain from having that in any kind of discussion as we go forward.
Well, thank you. Well, in going forward, I hope that we can. I hope that we can.
Well, you know, I talked to people in Dover, and this isn't going to cost you your grant. So, I mean,
well, I think that what we're thinking is we can do Cape Spirit with private donations.
right.
I think.
Do you give any consideration to it being like the premier product of a new sculpture park?
No, I think it's the premier. I think Cape Spirit can be iconic with Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
I think people will associate Cape Spirit and what Cape Spirit means I've asked children, what's Cape Spirit mean to you? And I've gotten funny, incredible replies. I've asked teenagers, what's Cape Spirit to you? Our sports, our lacrosse team, Cape Spirit. What does Cape Spirit mean to you? Lewis is a feeling. We just love it. Gotten all kinds of things.
For me, it's very spiritual, so.
I didn't want to use the word spiritual, but it's always been spiritual to me. And I've talked to lots of people. See, I can go on and on and on. I don't want to bore you.
Hey, we can do that all night.
I don't want to bore
So,
you. I really don't.
again, thank you very much, and I'm going to ask
You're
Tony
welcome.
to see you.
I just hope we can work together and get this all worked out. I really do. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Any other
Thank you.
comments?
I'm gonna, Marietta Sabatino, 805 Savannah Road, I live with Carol. You kept saying, we've got to know, we have to get engineers, we have to get these people to test the area to see if it's good. They are going to do that once they get the approval from you guys. If you approved it for them, they would go out, because that spot might not be feasible. They might say, you can't put it here. Okay, we'll look for another spot. But they can't do it until you approve it.
So Mary, maybe we could come up with this meeting to look at, other spots, or the idea of a conditional, a conditional approval with
Well, I
time
think
thing, but we
that's
haven't.
what Denise was asking, that
I think you
we
made a
approve it
mistake.
with conditions.
I think you made a big mistake. It should have been approved, and then if the engineers and the other said, no, you can't have it there, okay, we can't go any further there.
Do you know?
Okay? But if they said, this is great, just move it over 5 feet or 2 feet or 10 feet, you made a mistake by not approving it so that we get that information.
Did you know that in the policy, it says, if we approve this, and you guys go and carry expenses, the city is liable to pay for those expenses, no matter what they are? That's in the policy. I don't write that. But that's.
You guys are coming up with a lot of excuses, because I think a lot of you
She passed
had
out.
a negative idea on this in the first place.
Well, I don't know anybody in the committee has a negative idea
I think you do.
The reason I have that picture of the sculpture that I put up was, I'm thinking about buying it. I like rock.
It's not a Cape Spirit.
No, it's not.
So,
The young man in the front row.
Gavin Braithwaite, 2221 Kings Drive, Lewis. I just wanted to pitch out the comment I wanted to say earlier, but it's a committee meeting, not a public meeting. But I would like to ask, you were talking about safety, people are going to climb it with a rope. I would ask, have people climbed the pergola? Have people climbed the net house? Have people climbed up onto the overlook? Have people climbed the tennis courts, fence? Have people climbed up onto the boathouse? I don't know why you think people are going to climb the sculpture. I do know people who've jumped off the bridge at high tide and swum away safe, but I don't see why you suddenly brought that up as an objection.
It's just from my personal experience of what I've seen. That's why I think that.
But what if someone put a rope on one of the things that were just installed and tried to climb it?
It's all possible.
That's why we did with.
And in the agreement with the artists, the liability is, if it falls apart because of the installation or a problem on their end, they're liable. If somebody knocks it over, they're not liable, and they're covered under general liability. And if it's destroyed, we don't have to pay for it. That's the way it's. You cover all that in the contracts. This is what we do.
I am sympathetic. I have not liked the tenor of this meeting tonight. It is very disturbing to me.
Is there anybody in this city that's strong enough to knock that thing over?
I don't think it's going to get knocked over.
Well, that depends on how you put it up. It really depends on how you put it up. Things do go weird. It needs to be put up correctly.
I think what Peter was saying is the insurance, their insurance adjuster will come in and do a liability check and change their policy, and that's what they were talking about. That's what Peter was saying. He carries his own liability insurance. That's not in the city. Is that because of the friends of the ownership of the park? Does anybody know?
At this stage, I would like to go on record and say that I think it's a great shame that we were not able to pass the idea of putting Cape Spirit into the Canal Front Park, regardless of where, but into Canal Front Park, without the contingent, or with the contingencies that were mentioned. If you go back and look at the minutes of God knows how many different city meetings, things have been passed in principle subject to various contingencies, and I see no reason why we shouldn't or couldn't have done that this time. The piece is designed, in my opinion, to be close to the water, so putting it in another park somewhere, maybe a park that isn't even developed yet, is really immaterial.
I'd like to adjourn. Call to adjourn.
Right.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Hostile, and I knew it would be not fun.
Tony, we didn't do this.
Recording.
So we have to go to the parks.